They thought she would break, but Marissa Kellen wasn't built to shatter. Betrayed by her own family, humiliated in public, and cornered with nowhere to run, she turned her silence into a weapon. In the boardroom showdown, secrets exploded, loyalties crumbled, and blood ties became her deadliest enemy. What happens when the only way to survive is to destroy the people who made you? The scent of roasted turkey and warm bread should have carried comfort, but for Marissa Kellen, it felt heavy, like the air itself was pressing against her chest. She stood at the head of the long oak dining table, ladle in hand, gently stirring the rich, velvety gravy she had spent the morning perfecting. Every detail of Thanksgiving dinner had been crafted with care: the buttery mashed potatoes, the golden rolls, the sweet potatoes glazed with brown sugar, the pumpkin pies cooling on the counter. It wasn't just food. It was her offering, her way of proving once again that she belonged. Marissa, her mother's voice cut through the clatter of plates and laughter, sharp enough to still her hand. Careful with the gravy. Don't spill it this time. The words pierced deeper than the warning intended. Her mother didn't mean to wound, at least not outright, but every syllable carried the weight of judgment. Marissa's chest tightened as she set the ladle down, fighting the familiar sting rising behind her eyes. Not this year, she told herself. Not again. She forced a smile and glanced toward the table, where her brother Jonathan and his wife Vanessa were pouring glasses of wine. Their laughter was easy, unbothered, a language Marissa had never learned. Jonathan leaned toward his wife, whispered something, and the two of them erupted in laughter. The sound seemed to echo in Marissa's bones. Sit, Marissa. We'll handle this, Jonathan said casually, sliding the bowl of cranberry sauce into the center of the table. It wasn't an offer. It was a dismissal. Her father, Edward, sat at the head of the table, silent and watchful. His approval rarely came in words. His silence was both shield and blade. Marissa searched his face for reassurance, for some sign that he noticed her effort. But he merely adjusted his glasses and reached for the carving knife. The clinking of silverware began, the rhythm of a family united in appetite, but not in spirit. Marissa lowered herself into the chair, her hands trembling slightly as she smoothed the napkin across her lap. She tried to join the conversation, something about Jonathan's promotion, Vanessa's new car, their upcoming ski trip to Aspen. Each sentence felt like a stone in her throat. Her mother smiled at Jonathan, eyes glowing with pride. We're so lucky to have a son like you, always making us proud. The words struck Marissa harder than the hot splash of gravy that suddenly spilled across her hands when her glass tipped. Gasps rose from the table. The dark liquid stained the white tablecloth, spreading like a wound. Marissa. Her mother's voice cracked like a whip. Can't you be careful for once? Silence crashed over the room. Marissa's cheeks burned. She dabbed at the spill with her napkin, muttering apologies that no one seemed to hear. Jonathan chuckled under his breath. Vanessa smirked, sipping her wine. Her father's eyes flicked to the mess, then away, as if it wasn't worth addressing. She swallowed hard, her throat raw. Why is it always me? The meal continued, the conversation flowing around her like a river she couldn't step into. Her words caught in her chest, her presence shrinking until she felt almost invisible. Later that evening, after the dishes had been washed and her parents retreated to the living room, Marissa slipped into the hallway. Her phone buzzed with a notification. She opened Facebook, and her heart sank. There they were, her parents Jonathan and Vanessa, posing in front of the fireplace. Her mother's caption read, "Another perfect Thanksgiving with the family. Blessed beyond words." Marissa's name was nowhere in the post. She stared at the photo, her pulse drumming in her ears. It was as if she hadn't even been there, as if her hours of cooking, her careful planning, her desperate need to be seen had never existed. Her chest tightened until she could barely breathe. She set her phone down, the screen glowing in the dark like an accusation. Upstairs, in the quiet of her room, the dam finally broke. Tears slid down her cheeks, hot and unrelenting. She muffled her sobs into her pillow, desperate not to let them hear. Why do I keep trying? But beneath the ache, A small ember sparked. A thought she hadn't dared to entertain before. Maybe I don't have to. December brought the promise of celebration, but for Marissa, it arrived like a storm cloud. Christmas lights twinkled on every street corner, shop windows glittered with cheerful displays, and carols drifted from every passing speaker. But in her parents' house, the warmth belonged to everyone except her. It started with the group text. Mom, Jonathan and Vanessa will be hosting Christmas Eve this year. Marissa, could you make yourself useful and bake the pies? Everyone loves your pumpkin recipe. Jonathan, yes, 3 pies. And maybe a cheesecake too? Vanessa has her heart set on one. Mom, perfect. That way, Vanessa can focus on decorating. She's so talented. Marissa stared at the thread, her thumbs hovering over the keyboard. She typed out a reply, of course, happy to help, then deleted it. She typed again, sure, no problem, and deleted that too. Her heart hammered. Why was it always her job to fill the gaps, to take orders, to be the convenient placeholder? She wanted to type no. I'm not your maid. But the word felt like a live wire, too dangerous to touch. She set her phone down, the conversation continuing without her. When Christmas Eve arrived, Marissa walked into Jonathan and Vanessa's home carrying boxes of pies, her shoulders aching from the weight. The house was adorned with garlands and glittering ornaments, the tree trimmed with silver and gold. Laughter filled the air, warm and bright, but it wasn't directed at her. Marissa set the desserts on the counter. Vanessa instructed, waving her manicure hand as she fussed with the centerpiece. Oh, and don't forget to bring the whipped cream from the car. You did bring it, didn't you? Yes, Marissa whispered. She trudged back out into the biting cold, retrieving the bag from her trunk. Inside, Jonathan was pouring champagne into crystal flutes. To family, he declared, raising his glass. Everyone echoed him. Everyone except Marissa, who was still unpacking desserts no one had thanked her for. Her mother beamed at Jonathan. You really outdid yourself this year. We're so proud of you. The familiar knife twisted in Marissa's chest. Not a word for her. Not for the countless hours she spent baking. Not for the effort she poured into trying to belong. Dinner came and went in a blur of clinking glasses and cheerful chatter. Jonathan spoke at length about his new promotion, and Vanessa spoke about their upcoming ski trip to Switzerland. Her parents leaned in, their faces glowing with pride and admiration. When Marissa tried to share something, a project at work she'd been leading, her words were drowned beneath Vanessa's laugh and her mother's questions about ski gear. Invisible. Again. After dessert, her father announced, We've been thinking it's time to hand down the family china cabinet. It should stay with Jonathan and Vanessa. They'll appreciate it. The room filled with nods and smiles. Marissa sat frozen, fork halfway to her mouth. That cabinet, polished mahogany, glass doors gleaming, had been her grandmother's. She had polished it as a child, carefully dusting the fragile porcelain inside. For years, she had assumed it would be hers one day. Her mother caught her expression. Oh, Marissa, you wouldn't want the responsibility. It's better this way. The words landed like stones. Better this way. She pressed her lips together so tightly they turned white. Her heart pounded in her ears, and for the first time in her life, she felt the word rise inside her like a scream. No. But she swallowed it. Later that night, back in her own apartment, Marissa sat alone in the glow of her small Christmas tree. Her phone buzzed with photos from her family, Jonathan and Vanessa posing with the cabinet, her parents smiling proudly beside them. Not one photo included her. Her chest ached, her stomach twisted, but deeper than the pain was something new. A thought. A question. What if I don't go next year? What if I just stop? She leaned back, the ornaments shimmering in the dim light. For the first time, the idea of saying no didn't terrify her. It thrilled her. The new year had barely settled in when the next message arrived. This time it wasn't her mother, it was Jonathan. Jonathan, Vanessa and I are putting an offer on that house we showed you last month. We'll need your help with the down payment. Mom and Dad said you'd pitch in. It's only fair since you don't have kids or real responsibilities. Marissa's stomach dropped. She reread the message, each word slicing deeper. Your help. Only fair. Don't have real responsibilities. Her fingers trembled over the screen. She typed, Jonathan, that's not my job. I can't. Then she deleted it. She typed again. I don't have the money. Deleted. Finally, she shut her phone off, her pulse hammering in her ears. She didn't reply. 2 hours later, her mother called. Marissa, Jonathan said you're being difficult. They really need this help. Don't you want your brother to have a good start? You know he's always been the responsible one. If you don't step up, it'll break your father's heart. Marissa stared at the ceiling of her apartment, the phone pressed to her ear. She felt the walls closing in, the air tightening. Responsible one. Her throat burned. She wanted to scream, to tell her mother about the years of sacrifice she'd made, the countless holidays she had held together, the endless giving that no one ever acknowledged. But all she managed was a choked, I can't. Her mother's silence was sharp, cold. Then, I expected better from you. The line went dead. That night, Marissa tossed in bed, sleep a distant stranger. Her thoughts circled endlessly, accusations, dismissals, demands. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Jonathan's smirk, her mother's disappointed gaze, her father's detached silence. By dawn, her temples throbbed with a splitting headache. She stumbled through work, barely holding herself together. During a staff meeting, her manager asked a simple question, and suddenly her vision blurred. Tears slipped down her face before she could stop them. The room fell silent. Marissa, maybe take the rest of the day off, her manager suggested gently. She nodded, cheeks burning, humiliation suffocating her. On the drive home, her hands clenched the steering wheel so tightly her knuckles turned white. How much more can I take? 2 weeks later, the family's group chat buzzed again. Photos filled the screen, Jonathan and Vanessa on a sunny beach, cocktails in hand, the caption reading, Family getaway. Nothing better than time together. Marissa scrolled through the images in silence. Her parents were there, smiling widely, arms around Jonathan and Vanessa. She hadn't even been invited. Her chest tightened, her breath shallow. She set the phone down, but the images burned in her mind. She had cooked, cleaned, given, sacrificed, only to be erased. Her eyes landed on the small framed photo on her mantel. It was years ago, her grandmother's birthday. Marissa had been in the kitchen all day, preparing the meal. In the picture, everyone was gathered around the table, laughing. Her grandmother's hand rested on Marissa's shoulder, pride shining in her eyes. It was the only time Marissa had felt truly seen. Her grandmother's voice echoed in memory. One day, you'll have to stop setting yourself on fire just to keep everyone else warm. The words hit harder now than ever. Tears welled in her eyes, but beneath the grief, something stronger stirred. A slow, simmering heat. She whispered into the empty room, her voice trembling but fierce. No more. The silence that followed wasn't suffocating. It was liberating. For the first time, the word no didn't feel like failure. It felt like power. The weeks after the uninvited vacation crawled by, but inside Marissa, something shifted. The weight she had carried for years, the guilt, the obligation, the endless need for approval, was no longer unbearable. It was simply gone. What remained was a sharp, steady resolve. So when her mother called again, Marissa was ready. Easter dinner this year, her mother announced without preamble. We've decided it should be at your apartment. It's time you contributed properly. I'll send you the guest list. Marissa pressed the phone tighter to her ear. She could hear dishes clattering in the background, Jonathan's laugh carrying through the line. They were together again. Without her. She drew in a breath, her voice calm but unyielding.
No.
Silence crackled at the other end. Excuse me? Her mother asked, as though she hadn't heard correctly. I said no, Marissa repeated, each word crisp and deliberate. I won't be hosting. I won't be cooking. Not this year. Not anymore. Her mother gasped, scandalized. Marissa, don't be ridiculous. This is what family does. We all play our part. Yes, Marissa said, her tone steady. We all play our part. And mine has always been to give until there's nothing left. That's over. For a moment, there was nothing but stunned silence. Then came the familiar cutting tone. You're being selfish. You're ruining everything. Marissa almost laughed, a hollow, bitter sound that startled even her. No, Mother. For once, I'm saving myself. She ended the call before her mother could respond. That night, her phone lit up again and again. Jonathan demanded to know what was wrong with her. Vanessa sneeringly about how family obligations aren't optional. Her father's message, the shortest of all, disappointed in you. Marissa read each one, her pulse racing. Once, those words would have crushed her. Now, they only confirmed what she already knew. Nothing she gave would ever be enough. She set the phone face down on the counter. For the first time in her life, she didn't scramble to fix things. She didn't apologize. She didn't beg. Instead, she booked a flight. Key West. A place her grandmother had always dreamed of visiting but never had. Marissa would go there, not for her family, but for herself. The morning of Easter, while her parents and brother gathered without her, Marissa stood barefoot on a sunlit beach, the ocean stretching endlessly and freely before her. The breeze carried salt and promise. She closed her eyes, feeling the sand between her toes, and inhaled deeply. No cooking. No serving. No shrinking. Only herself. Her phone buzzed again in her bag, but she ignored it. For the first time, she didn't need their approval. For the first time, she was enough. And yet, as the waves lapped against the shore, a thought lingered in the back of her mind. They won't let this go. They never do. The suspense of what would come next lingered like the tide, inevitable, unstoppable. But Marissa no longer feared it. She was ready. The flight home from Key West felt different than any other journey Marissa had taken. She carried no souvenirs in her bag, but something heavier and more valuable rested inside her. Freedom. The ocean breeze clung to her skin, and for days afterward, she could still hear the lull of waves whenever she closed her eyes. But reality wasted no time in crashing back. Her phone lit up the moment she landed. Dozens of missed calls, unread texts, and voicemails stacked like bricks. She scrolled through them quickly. Her mother's voice in one message was sharp and icy. You embarrassed us. Everyone was asking where you were. How could you abandon family like that? Jonathan was filled with indignation. You made Mom cry. Do you have any idea what you've done? Vanessa, and I can't believe how selfish you're being. Even her father, who rarely spoke more than a few sentences at a time, had left a curt voicemail. You've let us down. You've let me down. Marissa sat in her car at the airport garage, staring at the messages. For years, those words would have gutted her, unraveling her until she scrambled to make amends. But now, though her stomach knotted, she refused to crumble. She deleted every message, one by one, until the screen was clear. A week passed. At work, she moved quietly through her tasks, but her coworkers noticed something different. Her shoulders were straighter. Her voice is steadier. She no longer looked over her shoulder as if waiting for someone's approval. Her friend Nora caught her in the break room. You're glowing, Marissa. Did something happen? Marissa hesitated, then smiled. I said no. Nora blinked. To what? To everything, Marissa answered simply. But her family didn't vanish so easily. On Saturday morning, there was a knock at her door. Sharp, insistent. When she opened it, her parents stood there, Jonathan and Vanessa just behind them. They looked like an army, her mother's eyes blazing, Jonathan's arms crossed, her father looming silent as always. Marissa, her mother began, her tone clipped. We need to talk. She stepped aside reluctantly, the air in her apartment instantly heavy with their presence. They settled into her living room as if it were their own, their gazes sweeping over the modest furniture, the single small plant in the corner, the faint scent of coffee lingering in the air. This has gone on long enough, her mother said. Your behavior at Easter was unacceptable. You owe us an explanation and an apology." Jonathan leaned forward. "Mom and Dad deserve better than this. You've been acting out and it's not fair. We're family. We're supposed to support each other." Marissa met his eyes, a sharp edge in her voice. "Support each other? You mean me supporting all of you? I've done everything, every holiday, every meal, every chore, and none of you ever noticed. You only noticed when I stopped." Vanessa rolled her eyes. "Oh, please. You're being dramatic. Families rely on each other. You're just overreacting." Her father finally spoke, his voice low but stern. "Enough, Marissa. You will apologize to your mother, and then we'll put this behind us. That's what's best for everyone." The old Marissa would have obeyed. The old Marissa would have bowed her head, swallowed her pride, and mended the wound she didn't cause. But this Marissa leaned back, folded her arms, and said calmly, "No." The word landed like a thunderclap. Her mother's face reddened. Jonathan's jaw tightened. Vanessa muttered under her breath. Even her father, usually unreadable, stiffened in his chair. Marissa's heart pounded, but her voice didn't waver. "I'm not apologizing. Not this time. I'm done being invisible. I'm done being your scapegoat. If you can't accept me without the cooking, the cleaning, and the sacrifices, then maybe you never really accepted me at all." Silence pressed down on the room. Her mother finally stood, fury flashing in her eyes. "If that's how you feel, then maybe you don't belong in this family anymore." Marissa felt the sting of the words, but she didn't flinch. She only nodded. "Maybe I don't." Her father rose next, his disappointment like a shadow. Jonathan and Vanessa followed, their disdain written in every movement. Without another word, they left her apartment, the door slamming shut behind them. Marissa sank onto the couch, trembling. Tears burned at the corners of her eyes, but this time, they weren't from shame. They were from the release. She had spoken her truth, and though it hurt, it was hers. Still, as the silence of the apartment settled in, a question coiled in the back of her mind, sharp and unrelenting. If they've cut me off, what will they do next? The following week felt like walking through quicksand. At first, there was only silence. Her phone no longer buzzed with calls or messages. No one checked in, not even Jonathan with his endless updates about family dinners she was expected to attend. The silence was almost peaceful until the consequences began to surface. On Tuesday, Marissa opened her email at work and froze. A note from the building management office sat at the top of her inbox. "Miss Kellen, per your father's instruction, the automatic rent payment for your apartment has been suspended. Please arrange payment directly within 5 business days to avoid penalties." Her chest tightened. For years, her father had insisted on helping by covering her rent, his way of ensuring she stayed tethered to him. Now that the lifeline had been yanked away, she stared at the screen, anger sparking behind her ribs. It wasn't helpful. It was control. And now he was using it as punishment. The next blow came at work. Her boss, Mr. Lewis, called her into his office on Thursday morning. His expression was unusually tense, his fingers steepled on the desk. "Marissa," he began carefully, "I received a call this morning. From your mother." Marissa's stomach dropped. "She called you?" Mr. Lewis nodded. "She suggested that your personal life is unstable, that you've been unreliable lately. She implied that perhaps you aren't focused on your role here." Marissa's hands curled into fists in her lap. "That's not true. I've never missed a deadline. Never failed a project." "I know," Mr. Lewis said quickly. "Your work has been solid. But I want you to be aware, if your family continues to meddle, it could create complications." Heat rose in her face, not from shame, but fury. Her family wasn't just trying to punish her at home. They were trying to poison her reputation, strip away the independence she had fought for. That night, she sat on the edge of her bed, clutching her phone. Her fingers hovered over the contact labeled Dad. For a moment, the urge to call and scream into the receiver burned hot. To demand answers. To fight fire with fire. But then she stopped. She remembered the ocean in Key West. The way the waves didn't argue with the storm, They simply kept moving, carving their path unstoppable. She placed the phone down. If they wanted a war, she wouldn't play by their rules. Instead, Marissa opened her laptop. She pulled up her bank account, her bills, and her budget spreadsheet she hadn't touched in months. She studied every line, every number. For the first time in years, she asked herself not what her family wanted, but what she needed. Her rent would be tighter now, yes. Her savings would take a hit, but she could make it work. She would make it work. As the hours stretched into the night, she felt something shift inside her. Not despair, but determination. This wasn't just about Easter anymore. It wasn't just about chores or dinners or rent. It was about freedom. And if her family was willing to destroy her stability to get her back under their thumb, then she would build something stronger, something they couldn't touch. Still, as she closed her laptop and sat in the quiet of her apartment, a shadow of doubt lingered. How far will they go? And deep down, she feared she hadn't seen the worst of it yet. The following Saturday, Marissa stopped by her favorite cafe to escape the suffocating tension. The warm scent of roasted beans and cinnamon rolls usually calmed her, but today the air felt heavy. People stared at their laptops, murmured over lattes, unaware of the storm in her life. As she stirred her coffee, her phone buzzed. A text from her cousin Lila. "Are you okay? Heard about the incident. People are talking." Her pulse quickened. "Incident?" She quickly replied. "What incident?" The answer came almost instantly. "At Aunt Ruth's last night. Your mom said you've been having breakdowns. That you're unstable. She told everyone you might need professional help." Marissa's stomach dropped. She pressed a hand to her forehead, the cafe blurring around her. Her family wasn't just punishing her privately now. They were rewriting her entire image, turning her into the unstable black sheep. A low buzz of humiliation crept into her veins, but beneath it was fire. Unstable? The irony was unbearable. They had fed off her reliability for years, her steady hands, her quiet sacrifices. And now that she had stopped, they were smearing her as broken. She left her coffee untouched and hurried home, fury rising with each step. At her apartment, she paced, phone clutched tight. She couldn't stay quiet anymore. The lies were spreading too far, too fast. She dialed Vanessa. Her sister-in-law answered with a mocking lilt. "Well, if it isn't Marissa. Decided to crawl out from your little tantrum?" Marissa's jaw tightened. "You and my mother need to stop spreading lies about me. Do you hear me? I am not unstable." Vanessa laughed lightly, the sound sharp as glass. "Oh, sweetie, people are just worried. You've been erratic. Flying off on trips, refusing family duties, shutting everyone out. What did you expect them to think?" "I expected them to respect my boundaries," Marissa snapped. "Boundaries?" Vanessa scoffed. "This family doesn't do boundaries. We do loyalty. And clearly you've forgotten that." Before Marissa could respond, Vanessa hung up. The line went dead, but her words echoed like poison. This family doesn't do boundaries. That night, Marissa received a knock on her door. Her heart jumped. She wasn't expecting anyone. Through the peephole, she saw her father, Richard Kellen. Her breath caught. He hadn't come to her apartment in years. He had always summoned her instead, his office, his house, his rules. Now he was here. She opened the door slowly. "Dad." He stepped inside without waiting for an invitation. His presence filled the room, towering, stern, dressed in a tailored suit that screamed authority. "We need to talk," he said, his voice low, controlled. Marissa crossed her arms. "About what?" "Cutting off my rent? Smearing me at work? Letting Mom tell everyone I'm unstable?" Richard's gaze hardened. "You've embarrassed this family, Marissa. Publicly. You think you can just walk away from obligations? From blood? That's not how this works." Her heart pounded, but she forced her chin up. "I'm not your servant. I'm your daughter. And I'm done being controlled." For a fleeting second, something flickered in his eyes. Surprise. Maybe even doubt. Then it vanished, replaced by cold resolve. "You'll regret this," he said quietly. "You don't understand the damage you're doing." And with that, He turned and walked out, the door clicking shut behind him. Marissa stood frozen in the silence of her apartment, her pulse a drumbeat in her ears. He came to warn me, which means they're not finished. The suspense coiled tighter around her. Whatever came next, it would be bigger, harsher, and far more dangerous. And she would have to be ready. The week after her father's chilling visit, Marissa walked through her days with a sharp awareness of someone being hunted. Every text, every glance at work, every muted whisper made her pulse quicken. The Kellens weren't finished. They were circling. The blow finally landed on Friday evening. She came home from work to find a letter slipped under her apartment door. Thick cream stationery, embossed with her father's seal. She unfolded it slowly, dread tightening her chest. Effective immediately, due to repeated displays of emotional instability and public misconduct, we are requesting a psychiatric evaluation before you can rejoin family affairs or receive further support. At the bottom, in her mother's perfect script, was a final line. We are only doing this because we love you. Marissa's hands shook as she crumpled the paper. Love? This wasn't love. This was annihilation. They weren't just trying to control her anymore. They were trying to erase her credibility, to declare her unfit, unstable, broken. The next evening, she was invited, summoned really, to dinner at her parents' estate. Against her better judgment, she went. Something told her this was the confrontation she couldn't avoid. The dining room was lit like a stage, the crystal chandelier throwing sharp light across the polished table. Her parents sat at the head, Jonathan and Vanessa smirking nearby. Marissa, her mother began sweetly, we're worried about you. Her father slid a folder across the table. We've arranged an appointment. A specialist. You'll attend next week. Marissa glanced at the folder, but didn't touch it. And if I refuse? Jonathan leaned back, his smile lazy, cruel. Then people will assume the worst. After all, only someone with something to hide refuses help. The room seemed to close in on her. Every face, every word was designed to trap her, to box her into submission. But then she remembered the waves in Key West, the quiet power of choosing herself. And something inside her snapped free. She pushed the folder back across the table, her voice steady but blazing with fury. No. I'm not unstable. I'm not broken. The only thing wrong here is this family's obsession with control. And I won't play your game anymore. Her mother's face hardened, her father's jaw clenched, and Jonathan's smirk faltered. Marissa stood, her chair scraping loudly against the marble floor. If you want to destroy me, go ahead. But understand this, you'll never own me again. With that, she turned and walked out, her heels echoing against the cold tiles, her heart pounding like thunder. Outside, the night air was sharp and biting. She drew in a deep breath, her hands trembling. But this time from release, not fear. They had unleashed their worst, and she had stood tall. Yet as she slid into her car, she couldn't shake the gnawing sense that this was only the beginning. The Kellens had lost control of her, and families like hers didn't forgive. They retaliated. The war wasn't over. It was only just beginning. The weekend after the disastrous dinner, Marissa tried to convince herself she was free. She told herself she had drawn the line, had stood tall, had walked away. But freedom, she quickly learned, was never that simple. By Monday morning, the storm broke. She arrived at work to find whispers rippling through the office. Her colleagues avoided her gaze, their conversations clipped and hushed. When she sat at her desk, an email notification flashed across her screen. Effective immediately, Ms. Kellen has been placed on a temporary leave of absence, pending review. Her hands froze on the keyboard. A leave of absence? She clicked frantically, reading the formal HR letter attached. The justification cited concerns regarding emotional well-being and recent reports from credible family sources. Her heart thudded. Family sources. Them. She could almost hear Vanessa's voice dripping with false sympathy, Jonathan's smug tone convincing HR that his sister needed time off. The Kellens had reached into her professional life again, this time not with whispers, but with paperwork. Official, damaging, undeniable. She left the office numb, her body moving on autopilot as she wandered the city streets. Faces blurred around her, the sound of traffic distant and muffled. It wasn't just about family dinners anymore. They were dismantling her entire life, piece by piece, brick by brick. And for a fleeting moment, fear wrapped its claws around her chest. Maybe she couldn't fight them. Maybe they were too powerful, too relentless, too connected. But then, beneath the fear, something else stirred. Rage. Not the hot, fleeting kind, but a steady fire burning deep. They had taken her rent, her reputation, and now her career. But they hadn't taken her voice. Not yet. That night, she sat at her kitchen table with her laptop open. She typed furiously, every word a strike against the chains that had bound her for years. An email to HR, detailing her spotless record, attaching evidence of her recent projects, and making it clear that her family had a history of manipulation. A message to Lila, her cousin, asking for screenshots of the gossip texts her mother had spread. A confidential inquiry to a lawyer she found online, specializing in workplace harassment and defamation. She wasn't sure yet how the pieces would come together, but for the first time, she had a plan. As midnight crept closer, her phone buzzed. An unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. A man's voice, low and measured, slid through the line. Ms. Kellen? I suggest you stop fighting this. Walk away quietly, and things will be easier for everyone. Her breath caught. Who is this? The caller chuckled softly, then hung up. Marissa sat frozen, the hum of the dial tone filling her ear. It wasn't just whispers or rumors anymore. It was threats. And the war she had sensed coming? It had officially begun. Marissa barely slept after the anonymous call. Each time she closed her eyes, the man's voice slithered back into her mind. Walk away quietly. Easier for everyone. By morning, exhaustion clung to her, but determination pulled her out of bed. She refused to crumble. If anything, the call confirmed what she already knew. Her family was afraid. They wouldn't be threatening her unless they feared what she might do next. She spent the day gathering evidence. Emails proving she had never missed a deadline. Performance reports signed by her boss praising her precision. Screenshots from Lila showing the toxic texts her mother had circulated at family dinners. Each file, each image, felt like armor being forged. Still, every ping of her phone made her tense. Every shadow outside her window made her stomach knot. Fear pressed in, but she pushed it aside with a fierceness she barely recognized in herself. By late afternoon, she sat across from a lawyer in a downtown office. Ms. Carver, sharp-eyed and composed, flipped through the folder Marissa had brought. You're telling me your family orchestrated this smear campaign? To make you look unstable and jeopardize your career? Marissa nodded. They've done more than that. They've cut off my rent, spread lies to relatives, harassed me at work. And now, she hesitated, her voice tightening. Now I'm being threatened. Ms. Carver's expression hardened. If what you're saying is true, then you're not powerless, Marissa. You can fight this. Defamation, harassment, workplace interference. We can build a case. But I need you to understand something. Marissa leaned forward, hope and fear tangling in her chest. What? Once you move forward, there's no going back. Families like yours? They don't surrender. They escalate. Marissa swallowed hard, but her answer was firm. They already escalated. It's my turn. That night, she returned home feeling sharper, steadier. She opened her laptop again, drafting her official statement to HR and preparing to file a complaint with her lawyer's help. But as the cursor blinked on the glowing screen, a sharp knock rattled her door. Her breath hitched. She wasn't expecting anyone. She crept toward the door, peering through the peephole. A white envelope rested on the floor. No one was in sight. Hands trembling, she picked it up and tore it open. Inside was a single sheet of paper, typed in bold black letters. You've been warned once. Stop, or next time it won't just be your job on the line. No signature. No address. Just the threat. Marissa's knees weakened, but she steadied herself against the wall. For a long moment, the silence of her apartment pressed in around her. They wanted her afraid. They wanted her broken. Instead, the note ignited something fierce inside her. She grabbed her phone, snapped a photo of the threat, and sent it directly to Ms. Carver. Beneath it, she typed one line: "We're moving forward. They don't own me anymore." Her thumb hovered over send for half a second before she pressed it. And in that moment, something shifted. Marissa wasn't just surviving. She was striking back. The next week was a blur of movement and strategy. Marissa filed her official complaint with HR, attaching every shred of evidence she had collected. Ms. Carver assured her that the documentation was strong enough to challenge the suspension and possibly turn the tables on those who had meddled. But the Kellens didn't sit idle. By Wednesday, the local gossip columns had picked up whispers about the Kellen daughters' meltdown. Articles hinted at instability, failed relationships, and erratic workplace behavior. No sources were cited, but Marissa knew exactly where the poison had come from. She felt the world tilting against her, the Kellens' influence reaching deeper than she'd imagined. And yet, instead of breaking her, it only sharpened her resolve. On Thursday evening, Marissa attended her first meeting with Ms. Carver's investigative team. Two assistants were already digging into public records, tracking the Kellens' quiet maneuvers, following the money and the whispers. When one of them slid a report across the table, Marissa's pulse spiked. "Your father," the investigator said, "has been funneling payments to a PR firm. Their specialty? Smear campaigns." Marissa's stomach turned. "So, it wasn't just family gossip. They're paying people to destroy me." The investigator nodded. "And if they're willing to go that far, you need to be ready for worse." That night, back in her apartment, Marissa sat in the dark, staring out the window at the city lights. For the first time, she realized the war wasn't only about her independence. It was about survival. Her phone buzzed on the table. A message from an unknown number lit the screen. "You're playing a dangerous game, Marissa. Blood runs thicker than water. Stop now, before you drown in it." She felt her chest tighten, but then her fear melted into something else. Anger. Defiance. She typed back, her fingers steady. "I'd rather drown free than live chained to you." The message sent, the silence stretched. No reply came, but deep inside, Marissa knew. The final confrontation was coming. The Kellens had drawn every weapon, every lie, every threat. And she wasn't running anymore. She was ready to face them head-on, even if it meant tearing the family apart for good. The boardroom was colder than usual, though perhaps it was only Marissa's pulse that made it feel that way. The long mahogany table gleamed under the chandelier, and at its head sat her father, Dominic Kellen, flanked by her mother and Lucas, the dutiful heir. Across from them, Marissa walked in with Ms. Carver by her side, a stack of files under the lawyer's arm. Dominic's voice boomed first. "This little charade ends tonight. You've embarrassed this family enough." Marissa's jaw tightened, but she didn't flinch. "No, father. Tonight it ends for you." Ms. Carver slid the files onto the table and flipped them open. "Documented proof," she said crisply, "of Mr. Kellen's payments to a PR firm for defamation, his direct interference with HR investigations, and financial transactions designed to discredit his own daughter. If this goes to court, the fallout will be catastrophic for the family name and the company." Lucas leaned forward, his face flushed. "You're bluffing." Marissa met his eyes. "Try me." She slid a USB drive across the table. "Every document, every wire transfer, every smear campaign contract. I've backed it all up. And the press is on standby. If I disappear, if I lose my job, if anything happens to me, this goes public." A heavy silence dropped over the room. Dominic's fingers drummed against the table, a slow, furious rhythm. "You destroy your own blood?" Marissa's voice was steady, steel-edged. "You stopped being my family the moment you tried to own me. This isn't about blood, it's about freedom." Her mother's eyes brimmed with tears, but her father's face hardened, stone and fury. For a long moment, it seemed he might explode. Instead, He pushed back his chair, rising slowly. "You win this round," he growled. "But don't mistake survival for victory. The Kellen name endures. You'll always be the one who broke it." Marissa stood too, her chin high.
"No.
"I'll be the one who rebuilt myself without it." That night, Marissa walked out of the building with Miss Carver at her side, the city air sharp against her skin. She wasn't naive. Her father's influence wasn't gone, the Kellens weren't finished, and the war wasn't truly over. But for the first time in her life, she wasn't chained to their power. She had fought. She had survived. And as she looked up at the skyscrapers towering above her, Marissa Kellen finally felt something she had never truly known before. Victory.